Hi there, T. I don't know how to pronounce your name. So here's the question that you have to put into an equation or a system of equations to solve using matrices. I'm going to show you another example, and let's see if we can do all the steps. So here's an example similar to your problem. The junior class treasurer is totaling the sales and receipts from the last book sale. She has 50 receipts for sales of 3 different titles of books, priced at $14, $18.50, and $23.25. She has a total of $909 and knows that 22 more of the $18.50 books are sold than the $23.25 books. How many of each book are sold? So the first thing you need to do is know what you are trying to find. How many of each book were sold? That's what we want to find. Once we know that, we can define our variables. So let's take a look at defining variables. We have 3 variables because we have 3 different kinds of books. We have books priced at $14, books priced at $18.50, books priced at $23.25. So I'm going to say X, this is going to be the quantity of books at $14. Y, the quantity of books at $18.50, and Z, the quantity of books at $23.25. Okay, next we have to figure out what equations we have to write using those variables. Okay, so if we take a look at the information, we have 50 receipts for the sales of 3 different titles of books. What equation would we get if we want to take 50 receipts? I don't know how many books of each were sold, but I do know there were X at 14 and Y at 18 and Z at $23.50. And the total of those must add up to 50 receipts. Okay? All right, next. She has a total of $909. So how are you going to get money out of this situation? Well, you have your X books at $14, so that's 14X. Your Y books at $18.50, and your Z books at $23.25. And so there's our second equation that's really talking about money. The first equation was talking about quantity of books sold. Okay. All right, lastly, we've got this 22 more of the $18.50 books sold than the $23.25 books. So there were 22 more of these. So 22 more Y than Z. How do we say that? That means the Y total must be more than the Z total. That means Y must equal Z plus 22. Okay, so we're going to say Y minus Z is equal to 22. And we have 0 X's in that situation. Okay, all right, so let's take a look. So basically we're here. We have our 3 equations. Now we're going to set up our system of equations using matrices. Okay, so I'm just going to clean some of this out here a little bit, make some room. I want to take this system of equations and I'd like to turn it into a matrix system. All right, so that's when you take the coefficients. And we could turn it into the matrix system 1, 1, 1, 14, 18, 50, 23, 25, 0, 1, negative 1. Those are the coefficients of X, Y, and Z. If I augment that with the constants, 50, 909, and 22, and if I do some row operations to turn the left-hand 3 by 3 part of this matrix into the identity matrix, then what shows up are X, Y, and Z. Okay? Now, I think in the question on your test, your professor is asking you to create the augmented matrix to find the inverse matrix. Okay? So you have to start with some matrix that you're going to get your coefficients after you write your equations, with your identity matrix, then do your row operations, and turn this into the identity matrix on the left, and some new matrix on the right. And this new matrix on the right will be your inverse matrix. Okay? All right. So let's take a look. You said you knew how to do the row operations, so I'm not going to do that part. But let's take a look at your equation and say, what are you trying to find? What are 3 equations you can write? And so you can set up your system. Okay, so let's take a look. What is your goal in this problem? Find how much Mr. B should allocate to each of his investments. Okay, so what are the investments that Mr. B has? This says how much money he has altogether. But the 3 investments, investment 1, investment 2, investment 3. Okay, I might just call it, X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z is going to be the amount of money he allocates to those 3 investments. Now he's got treasury bills. He's got treasury bonds. And he's got corporate bonds. Okay, so in each of these, I've defined variables X, Y, and Z, and that's going to be the amount of money that goes to each of these investments. All right, next, we've got annual interest rates. So the T-bills get a 12% annual rate. Bonds get 8%, and the corporate bonds get 4%. Okay. And then he wants the treasury bonds to be more than the investment in the corporate bonds. It just says more. Oh, $500 more. Okay, so he wants treasury bonds to be $500 more than corporate bonds. So these guys have to be 500 more than these guys. Okay, so could you write your 3 equations from this? Let's take a look at the amount of money. X, Y, and Z going into each of those investments. The sum has to be 10,000. What's your equation that's going to relate those variables to the sum of $10,000? Okay, next, the annual rates, 12%, 8%, 4%. So what do we know about that? I mean, I could say, if this is if these are rates, like if I put in $100 and I get 12% on treasury bills, That means I'm going to have $112 at the end of the investment period. So does that mean I do 1.12x plus 1.08y plus 1.04z? Question is, what is this number? Okay, so where do we see something about how much money he wants to make on these investments? Okay, he wants to get an annual income of $1,000. So I think this number down here has to be $1,000. Okay, lastly, let's take a look at this idea that the treasury bonds have to be 500 more than the corporate bonds. So that means y has to equal z plus 500, or 0x plus 1y minus 1z has to equal 500. Okay, so with any of these word problems, it's important for you to kind of take apart the information that's given to you and categorize it. So first we categorized what kind of money are we talking about. Then we categorized what kind of annual interest rate and what that annual income is going to be. And then we looked at this third constraint of one bond, one investment being so much more than the other. Okay, but there I think you have your matrix system or your system of equations. Now you can set up your matrix system and solve. Okay, I wish you good luck. And if you have a math tutoring center at your university, I highly recommend that you go and visit it regularly because there's people there that can help you. Okay, good luck. Bye.